Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below this video. Also below the video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Chocolate Sayin, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good day to everyone.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello, everyone.
Quick shout out immediately to Julio Pabon. Good morning, everyone. And the answer is no to all housekeeping questions. Oh, well, there you go. That's going to cut down on time quite considerably. But in all seriousness, we do need to actually ask the questions in case anybody in Discord, which is really who the questions are for. Let's be honest. We're just filling time when we answer them. And when people say, look, it's boring when you answer them. Yeah, well, you know, you've got to encourage your kin to come on to the show and disprove the questions that are being asked in order to make it that little bit more exciting. Now, the reality of the situation is there is no rebuttal to any of the housekeeping questions, as Julio Pabon correctly identifies. Now, there's not a lot we can do about that. The Earth is, in fact, obviously and observably and measurably flat. So that's going to be a bit of a problem for somebody who already knows that. It might be a bit boring for you. But try to bear in mind that there's always somebody new who comes along here, if you're sharing the show. And they're going to find out with aplomb how flat Earth is when they hear those questions and the lack of responses we get. But the Discord server is open. There is a link below. Hopefully we'll get some answers today. Even if you're a flat earther today, just for the sake of it being a little bit different. G+, take heed. Hopefully I'll encourage some answers from Discord today. Go on, Owen. How you doing? How are you doing, rather?
Hello. Yeah. Okay. I got Sean Hawkins in my chat today, and he said that he has videos in which he has found quotes from Einstein where he said that he never superseded Newtonian gravity. But then when I tried to push him to actually quote that, then he kind of went away.
You watch Sean Hawkins? That's the only shocking bit of that.
But he said that, like, no, Newtonian gravity was never superseded by Einstein gravity. Einstein never claimed that.
I mean, I was chatting to the village idiot on the corner in town, and he was saying the unicorns are real. Should we discuss village idiots and their thoughts and feelings on nonsense?
Well, it was in the Bible, after all.
Sean Hawkins is in the Bible. That does surprise me.
No, the unicorns.
You do some house.
So the village idiot may have more of a point than Sean Hawkins did, because I'm pretty sure that Einstein never said that, or even hinted to Newtonian gravity.
He doesn't have to.
Unicorns in the Bible?
Apparently so.
You're darn straight, the Adam Meakin. They're in the Bible.
I'll take that quote. I'll read that. Where's that then, Owen?
Talking about
I don't know. I heard somebody say it
You'll
sometime.
find it all over.
I haven't found it yet.
You'll find it all over the Psalms.
There you got the confession amongst the Discord rumbling. He hasn't found it yet, therefore it's not there. He just made it up.
Did he make it up himself? Because if he did, it's probably true.
We'll establish that with Arwin. Did you make that up yourself, and possibly have you written it down as well? Because that would obviously assist you in the validity to this statement. Did you make it up yourself?
The unicorns being in the Bible?
Yeah.
No, I did not make that up myself.
Citation,
but
please.
To be fair, I've never really traced it down to a literal piece in the Bible where it said that it might not be of the original canon. It might be one of the other
books. That terminology. can you, with the Bible? And I suppose canon is actually correct. Is that the right terminology?
Thought so.
If you're a Catholic.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
But I've heard from multiple sources, even way back, that unicorns were actually mentioned in the Bible somewhere, or in those writings associated with that.
It's coming
right.
back, Harwin. It's coming back. It's a misnomer. They discuss it, and it's either a rhino or a unicorn. They describe the horn.
Right.
Somewhere I'm remembering now.
Ah. Thank you. Now I don't have to stand in the spot.
Right. Some people say it's
Well,
rhino with one horn.
leave it to a baller to think a rhino is a unicorn.
Tenth, you'd know this. I'm sure it's in there somewhere. Where it's not. They don't say unicorn, but they describe a horned.
Yes, yeah, I think you're right there, Adam. But I'm just saying, I was using that. Leave it to a baller to see a rhinoceros and say it's something else.
Yeah.
What's happening here is the G Plus panel has heard my initial encouragement for the Discord server to answer the housekeeping questions, and now we're discussing unicorns and their presence or lack thereof in the Bible. Isn't that fascinating?
Well, I got a cowboy up when it's my turn. That's it.
Right, let's try and do housekeeping.
Even
and
if they did exist, it's pretty sure they don't exist anymore.
I've exposed the tip that they're using, but Alwyn's still keen to sharpen that tip. And let's do housekeeping, and hopefully G
It's
Plus panel.
Arwen's fault.
Hopefully G Plus panel will try and leave a little bit of air for the people in Discord to answer. We'll see how we get on though. So
Wait a minute. I thought Arwen did that on purpose. Actually, when he first did it, I thought that was pretty clever of him to just make that up.
I don't make things up.
But you
That's a
just
lie.
made that up.
I just realize things.
realize. Realize means make actual. Real eyes. It means make actual. Yeah. Actually realize.
Don't get all semantic on me. Unicorns may still exist in the inner earth.
Words have meaning.
Oh God. Can we do the housekeeping right? How long are we into the show? Are we? We're nearly 10 minutes.
Any
into
signs
the show.
of unicorns?
Less
Any
unicorns,
signs?
more glow
Nathan,
birth
what's
debunkings.
going on is you
getting
actually
rumpus by
plucked and
Neil and
quiet.
Darwin. All I'm trying to do is housekeeping. My God, we haven't even got any funny guests on yet.
I'm just trying to tell you they said we should be quiet for Discord, and now they're coming up with these things so they don't have to be quiet.
I'll
Neil's
use
from
this
New York.
tactic
You
more
have to
often.
forgive him.
Right, we're going to say a little blessing over the Discord server so we can get some movement in terms of housekeeping. So, Radius Dominus, Gravitas Spiritus Sanctus Arwin. Go in peace, fundies, in R you trust. We'll start there. Any evidence of the R value? Before I've even got the question out, who was that from G+? Arwin.
That was me. I was just like, man, it's been long since I heard the prayer. Good times.
It was actually kind of funny to hear it.
It was a prayer
Go
for
in peace,
silence from G+, just for the housekeeping, which we could rattle through in 3 minutes. Right, any evidence of the R value? Earth, radius.
Yes, it exists on Miquest's calculator.
We don't ask him for evidence of its use, evidence of its measurement.
Oh yeah, 3 giant unicorn strides.
No.
Anyone else from Discord specifically? Clearly not. Right, G+, how about it? R value? Any evidence?
Black Swan.
There's no evidence.
It's just assumed. Then when you assume it, then you can find the evidence for that pre-assumption.
We asked the
If it
question.
doesn't fit, then you'll just make up something like a paradoxical terrestrial refraction to account for why it doesn't abide by the spherical geometry.
A bit of
It wouldn't
cheerleading
be
going on for Arwin.
Refract.
A bit of cheerleading going on for Arwin from Amanda Young. He says, a big shout out to Arwin, the best flat earther. And then some hearts and claps and thumbs ups and stuff.
Aw,
Yeah.
thank you, Amanda Young. You're the sweetest.
Depending on who was on the ballot, I'd probably agree with you and tick my Arwin box also.
We wouldn't be asking the question if there was any evidence.
Also, best is very subjective. Thanks for the super chat, Amanda Young. Any evidence of physical geometric sphere edge horizons, formerly known as Earth curvature, blocking boats and stuff? Discord server, you get priority today.
It's a no.
Fair enough. Anyone else in G+? There is actually a public chat today, just so you know. If you're watching live, you can actually chat. Don't have to be a member. Right, what about you, G+? Earth curve edge horizons?
Is there any evidence of a Discord server?
Yeah, we're getting replies. Link below if you want to join. There's gaps on the panel. If you feel these housekeeping questions are benign or easy to overcome, feel free to join and tell us exactly how. It's been a while, let's be honest.
Nobody claims the horizon's Earth curve anymore.
Boom.
Except when they point at it in video.
And claim it.
And say it's Earth curve, and how much it blocks something in the distance. Yeah, we know. They've still got Earth curve calculators claiming the horizon's Earth curve,
Right.
and it blocks stuff.
So they don't claim Earth curve when you ask them, but when they look at pictures, they do claim it up until the point where you ask them about it, and then they don't claim it anymore.
Exactly.
So it's like this secret pleasure is the claim of Earth curve. The secret
And they'll
pleasure.
ask you to prove to them that that's their claim that they make when they're not claiming it.
Much the same as Coriolis deviation. So you say, well, nothing's drifting away at 15 degrees now. That's shortened flight times. Prove to me that we claim Earth has drift and that we'd observe it. Meanwhile, thanks, Bob, for proving 15 degrees an hour drift with the gyro as Earth turned underneath it. Well, if Earth's turning under a gyro, those planes you denied that would drift would drift. Prove to me we claim there's drift. That's how it goes. Any evidence?
It's almost like they don't even know why they're saying thanks, Bob. Like, it's so stupid.
Isn't the movement of the sun drift in their world?
In their world, it's Coriolis drift, yeah. They claim Earth turns under the sun, like it turns under the gyro, and turns under the bullet in the football. It's
And
Coriolis
Chocolate,
drift.
you said before that when you leave the Earth, why do the stars keep what?
Appearing to move. Well, because it's
Yeah.
not Earth turning beneath them.
Sofa right there.
Right, but it's very easy, you know. As soon as somebody claims anything is deviating because the Earth is spinning underneath it, whether it be some form of gyroscope or a thing floating up there, as soon as they claim it, I realize this now. I realize why Nathan has been hammering onto the Coriolis effect for so long the way that he did, because it really is that basic. It's just that we've been made to forget that if a thing is deviating in some way, altering its orientation because Earth is spinning underneath it, then everything should. Everything not attached to the Earth should be doing that. And the ballers just kind of don't want to know about that natural consequence.
Because it
They
doesn't
think that
happen.
Coriolis
They pick
is
and choose.
selective. So
It's because it doesn't happen. They don't want to know about the natural consequence because it doesn't happen.
What we've been led to forget is that they changed their claim, because it used to be the original claim is that we would see things deviating that would be moving in a straight line above us because we're rotating underneath us. But then airplanes turned up, and that was a bit of a problem because the airplanes weren't doing what the stars and the sun and moon do. They were doing something completely different. So that was a problem.
Yeah. Then you have a convoluted gaggle screw of nonsense in terms of assertion of actual drift versus not actual drift, and a confusion that people will think that you have actual rotation of water going down drains in different hemispheres, all sorts of convoluted crap that's nothing to do with actual Coriolis deflection, which is easy to describe. If you're on a roundabout, anything that's not spinning that you're looking at seems like it's moving when it isn't. Well, why does a tree seem to move when you're on a turning roundabout? Because you're turning on a roundabout. So the tree looks like it's moving. Well, that would manifest in you looking up at the sky on the roundabout and watching an aeroplane turn around 180 degrees if that's how far the roundabout is turned. But the plane hasn't moved a smecking inch. It hasn't turned around. It's just you looking at it seeming to turn around. And that's the claim that Earth has. Coriolis deflection is just that. You looking up from an Earth that's spinning beneath the aeroplane and going, oh, look at that plane. It looks like it's taking a curved path. and the guy next to you going, nah, it's just us turning underneath it. It doesn't actually curve, it just looks like it does because we're turning beneath it at 15 degrees an hour. You go, all right. Well, if we're turning beneath that plane at 15 degrees an hour to cause this effect of Coriolis deflection and not actual deflection, looking like it's curving, wouldn't that mean that the Earth has got to be turning underneath it and that would shorten its flight times? It would bring its destination to it if it was travelling west at a much quicker rate. Yeah, it would. Well, does that happen? No, it doesn't. Well, then there isn't any drift then. It simply doesn't happen. Likewise, you can launch a drone off the ground and watch the stars turn from the camera. Even though it's not attached to the ground, well, if it's the Earth turning beneath the stars causing that movement, then what would happen is the drone would whiz away from you at whatever rate the Earth is claimed to be turning underneath it, and it would be in lockstep with the stars. Well, that doesn't happen either. Drones don't whiz away from you at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator because the Earth's turning beneath them. They would if we had Coriolis deflection. That's what it is. We'd see it going, whoa, look at that drone drifting away really rapidly. And the guy next to you nudges you and goes, no, no, no. The drone's actually just hovering, but the Earth's turning beneath it. That's why it seems to be disappearing into the distance at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. Said nobody ever, because it doesn't happen. So because it doesn't happen, they've got to convolute and confuse the argument, because their effect of Coriolis drift does not happen, because we're not turning.
So wait a second. You're saying to me, hold on, you're saying that if the Earth is turning, everything should deviate that's in the air. So if I'm playing ball with my son and I throw a ball straight at him, I should see an apparent deviation, a deflection of some sort?
That's correct. If you're on instead of using what they've done, which is take a trick of scale and make it seem like the rules change when you scale up things to a spherical ball Earth that's presupposed. Well, if you just scale it back down again to a roundabout, and there's you and your son on a roundabout throwing balls to each other, do you think you're going to see the ball drift as the ball leaves your hand and the roundabout turns underneath the ball? So you're throwing it to him who's also on the roundabout. Of course it's going to curve away. You're turning beneath it when you let go of it. Same way as you look up at the aeroplane above the roundabout. Oh, look, it's turning around. Must want to go home. No, you fool. You turned underneath it on a roundabout. Well, that's the effect that everything that was witnessed from a turning reference frame, that would be an Earth that's spinning, would do. They'd all have drift. Anything that's left the ground would drift away. Like on a roundabout. Can't not, because then it's not doing what they claim it does, which is Coriolis deflection. That's what they've claimed. They claim we have Coriolis effect. That's what Coriolis effect is, and we don't have it. It is just that simple. Anything from Discord on the subject?
I was listening to Brandon's the other night when I was talking about Bob's gyro, and I was about to come in. Actually, just joined, just asked this very question, but Flat Earth Data bet me to it. He asked them, right, if the gyroscope, right, is on the ground, it supposedly measures a drift. If the gyroscope is in mid-air, like an airplane or something like that, will it measure the drift? The answer is no. Why? Because the Earth is not rotating. Because their claim is that the atmosphere and Earth are moving in lockstep with each other. So in that situation, you should be able to put one onto a drone and hover it, and it should measure the same drift that it's supposed to measure. If it's measuring, which it's not, measuring Earth rotation while it's sitting on the ground, then it should be measuring it when it's hovering in mid-air too.
Yeah, because... but hold on. For it to do that though, what are you going to observe if it is measuring drift when it launches? Well, it's going to bugger off away from you at whatever rate it's claimed the Earth turns beneath it. For you to observe that drift. Well, do you ever launch a drone and it just bugger off at whatever rate it's claimed Earth's turning beneath it? No.
No, this was more of an attack on the whole atmosphere moving at the same rate as the globe.
Brian beat me to it.
Yeah, the atmosphere moving at the same rate as the globe. It's like their claim is that, oh no, that it doesn't drift away. The drone doesn't drift away because it's been brought along by the atmosphere, right? But if they can't measure a 15-degree an hour drift of the atmosphere as well as on the ground, then that means the two of them are not working in lockstep. If you know what I mean. That was obviously it's not measuring Earth rotation.
Exactly.
on the ground either. But it's just
Exactly. The point
claim.
in here is
Yeah.
Brian's now detailing a debunk for a claim that they're moving in lockstep. Well, no drift then. The claim's Coriolis. It requires two reference frames separate from one another, and you observing something in an inertial reference frame seeming to do something it isn't. So it's back to my roundabout example for this debunk that comes from our way, when we say, well, we're supposed to have Coriolis and we don't. And they say, no, we don't have Coriolis, bearing in mind that the claim globe has is Coriolis. The glober will tell us, we don't see drift, we don't have Coriolis, because Earth and atmosphere move together. They're both rotating. I just assume rotation that gives you no effect. No Coriolis. Oh, right. So, by comparison, on a roundabout, I look up at the aeroplane and it doesn't turn around 180 degrees as I turn beneath it, because the atmosphere is lockstep with my roundabout. Therefore, when I turn, the aeroplane turns. Well, that's definitely not a detailed explanation of Coriolis effect, because from the ground that's supposed to be turning, you're supposed to see it drift. And they're explaining why it doesn't, and justifying it with a begging the question fallacy that is, I'm going to assume Earth turns, but gives you no effect because the atmosphere also turns with it. So it's like, well, your answer, if you're adept to Coriolis arguments, is that's not Coriolis effect then. So no drift, no 15 degrees an hour then.
Yeah, because if they're not getting a 15 degree an hour drift by putting it onto a drone that's hovering in the air, that debunks all rotation, because that means the atmosphere is not moving in lockstep with the Earth. But because the drone is sitting there, what you said originally is true. Because the drone is sitting there in front of you, it means that also the Earth is underneath it is not rotating.
Exactly.
Because
But
the
that's
one is
crazy.
not in lockstep with the other, and the other one's not moving. So come on, sorry.
Why did Mr. Smoke in the Grass Tyson clearly claim that a football that's kicked has the Earth rotating beneath it? He did.
Because that's the claim. The claim is the ball will drift because you're watching it with you turning beneath it. That's what Coriolis is. A deviation in the ball apparent from the stands because they're attached to the Earth. The ball's left Earth and continue to rotate underneath. That's Neil deGrasse Tyson's claim, in line with the globe claim that it has Coriolis effect. So he's claiming drift at 15 degrees an hour, observable in the ball. That is actually the claim. So as soon as Brian starts saying, well, they're saying that we won't see 15 degrees an hour because, it's like that's the end of their argument. You're supposed to have 15 degrees an hour drift on a globe. Currently it's being ascribed to Bob Nodell. Thanks, Bob, for proving drift. Yeah, that's 15 degrees an hour as Earth turns underneath stuff that we're also being told we don't see, and why we don't see it. Well, as soon as we don't see it, we don't see the claim to be globe proof in the form of Coriolis. Don't tell us why we don't see your claim to be globe proof. If we don't see it, it's not globe proof.
Exactly. If the atmosphere is not moving in lockstep with the Earth and the drone is still sitting in front of you, that means none of it is moving.
Exactly. It's stationary.
Can I share screen a sec, mate? But
Yeah, sure.
that's the argument that they take us to, and what we're expected to see if they claim that the Earth is rotating is Coriolis. And we're then given mitigation as to why we don't see it. And they're living there. But the fundamental of this Coriolis, because we are seeing the stars aren't in lockstep with us. So we see the stars transit across the sky. So the ultimate question, and I kind of want to answer it with a bit of non-science, is which is moving? Okay, because they're claiming it's the Earth that's moving, that's causing this movement of the stars, and we would suggest it's the stars that are moving. So all I'd like to just cite, and I won't bore people too much with it, is just Airy's failure. Which is it's not science. It's just a great demonstration that applies a bit of logic. So by passing the starlight through the telescope, it should hit the bottom. Now, if the Earth was moving, then what we could do is fill the telescope with water, and because the movement of light through water is slowed somewhat compared to just through air, then the position that the star would hit the back of the telescope would be slightly moved if the Earth moving, but it doesn't. Hence why it's called Airy's failure. And this demonstrates that the Earth is not moving. It's the stars that are moving overhead. So that demonstrates which of the two are moving, whether it's the stars or us. So that to me is a great practical demonstration that's not scientific, but really does undermine their point. They're trying to claim it's the Earth that's moving and mitigate as to why we don't see the supposed effects you'd get. But this kind of demonstrates that it's the stars that are moving. I've done.
Excellent. Thank you, Adam.
I was gonna.
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, the best way to convolute this if you're a baller is you got to beg the question, throw in an oxymoron, and then ignore how gas behaves. And then you can confuse yourself enough to ignore everything else that's said.
That's very helpful. If you're a sufferer of cognitive dissonance, that advice is very sound.
Can I just add something here?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
All of this has been debunked already by Simon Dam anyway.
Feel free to enlighten us how Simon Dan has debunked the claim that we have an axial rotation provable by two reference frames, one turning beneath the other. How has Simon Dan debunked this?
Well, he said that the reference frames have been ruined, so he debunked already the Coriolis, didn't he?
Yeah. So Simon Dan, quote, "You and your reference frames have been ruined," end quote. Those would be the reference frames detailed in that last discussion, i.e. non-inertial spinning reference frame claimed to be a globe Earth that turns, turning beneath an inertial reference frame for bullets, footballs, gyroscopes, pendulums, stars to seem to move because we're turning beneath them. That's the claim based on two reference frames debunked by Simon Dan. Yeah, good point. Thanks, George.
I don't know. The whole thing to me
No,
sounds stupid.
thanks, Dan.
Because when something is moving in front of me, I don't say, gee, am I moving or are they moving? Like, hello, this makes no sense to me.
Well, just to add a little bit of extra fuel to the fire, solar, which is sun movement, lunar, which is moon movement, and sidereal, which is star movement, are all different rates. There are three different rates. So the only thing they have to latch their wagon onto is the sun. That's what they need. They need it, and they need, for the sun to be coming up over a geometric horizon, they need a geometric horizon, which they don't have, and they don't have a radius value. So sunsets and sunrises are debunked. That's the end of it.
My
Yes,
citation is rumpus.
It's the
geometric horizon only exists in the map.
That's correct. But I think Brian's. I don't know if you came before this after this chocolate, but we're utilising the Black Swan game. How many steps can you debunk a heliocentric claim by way of the Black Swan? So, for example, moon landing. Well, the distance they claim to have travelled to get to the moon through a second law of thermodynamics violation was calculated based on Christian Huygens' assumption of R, based on the assumption of Earth's radius, and that's been debunked by the Black Swan. So there you go. It's like a bit like a Kevin Bacon game, but how many steps to get to Kevin Bacon? Instead, it's how many steps can you get to the Black Swan debunking for this particular claim? Because all claims of heliocentrism can be debunked with the Black Swan. It's just how many steps you need to get there.
Well, the shortest steps to Bacon definitely went out.
Indeed.
I've got another one of them, Nathan. I saw it's every link on Wikipedia. If you take it and then take the first blue highlighted next link, so the first link, following link that then comes up, if you keep following those, no matter what word you start with, you end up with philosophy. Even if you started with Kevin Bacon.
I don't know. You're talking about bacon and links. I'm getting hungry.
I see. So what I think I just wrap my head around what you've said in
I'm eating
my
bacon.
very brief
Start,
3
start
seconds.
with science, you'll end up at philosophy.
Yeah,
Start with
I
any
can
word.
see how. Even if I was thinking, how can I catch him out on this? And the only things that went through my mind were, well, if you try and do it with something empirical, well, no, because the roots of the empiricism offered by the scientific method are derived from philosophical standpoints. The method is empirical, but its roots are in philosophy.
I just want to shout out Bacon and Links. Very excellent comment from Neil.
We got it the first time, but thanks.
Excellent.
Terrible chocolate, but much more worthy of a laugh. Sorry, 10th.
I think, I mean, Neil had it. No one gave him props.
Okie dokie. Any
They
scientific
didn't
evidence?
like it.
Any
No,
scientific-
that was over easy, quick, huh?
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No scientific evidence.
Just stay on the sunny side, man.
Oh, you guys are cracking me up.
Neil is only a
Cracking me up.
Cracking me up.
You've got to be careful. Got to be careful.
Come
If
on,
you're not
Nathan's trying to
careful-
be serious.
If we're not careful, this will descend into permanent ad homs. You know, once we're there, you can't unscramble scrambled eggs. So let's move on.
Agreed.
But Virus should be upset then because he has multiple reference frames.
Yeah, multiple pants in multiple reference frames. Yes, what a clown. Scientific evidence of gravity. Anybody at all? Discord, I'm looking at you.
The force of gravity creates the force of gravity.
I saw that clip that you trimmed out from Craig's time on this show, which was extremely amusing. What's gravity? Well, no, gravity's not a force. I accept that, but it creates a force. Well, what kind of force? Well, an emergent force. Well, what's the force it's creating? Well, a downward 9.8 meters per second in the earthward direction. Well, so gravity then? No, an emergent force. Well, what's the force that you're describing? Well, gravity. So gravity, which is not a force, creates the emergent force of gravity. That's what Chocolate led Craig fight the flat earth on a merry dance of. It was epic. I was in tears this morning. I forgot all about that.
Good times.
Can't we play it?
I could have a go if you can give me some
Can't get
scientific
copyrighted,
evidence of
can
gravity
you?
in the
Can't do it
meantime.
yourself.
Unless he's going to copyright himself. It was
Yeah.
his show.
Can you copyright strike yourself?
My show.
Gravity, that's an incoherent argument, isn't it?
Right, do we want to hear this? Do we want to hear?
Force. How is gravity doing anything?
Yeah, I think we've
Sorry?
exhausted this. Yeah, you just begging the question for every question we ask.
Gravity isn't a force thing.
If
Well,
anybody was
gravity-
wondering how Craig would get on with the housekeeping questions, now you know. He begs the question for every answer. That's what he does. That's how he got on. He begged the question at every opportunity. He assumed his fundy belief to answer every question.
Hey, Nathan, how do you convert into
Well,
kilometers?
Craig,
from
are
meters?
you doing what George Musa told you to do? Is that, gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as one? Is that what you're doing right now? Are you thinking of gravity as a force?
I don't need to think of gravity as a force because there is a force created by gravity.
Oh, gravity now
What's it
creates
called?
a force. What's the force
Yeah.
that gravity creates? What's that?
It's it creates an
Oh.
acceleration of about 9.8
Hello?
meters squared on Earth.
Is it, you haven't, that's a number. You have a name for that force? What's the force that gravity creates? I don't want a number.
An emergent force.
An emergent force? What the hell is that?
You know what emergent means?
Can you define
consequence.
that for us?
It means it's a consequence.
And
of
can you
something
cite
else.
that afterwards?
What's
Sorry?
the consequence of?
I didn't hear what you said. Nathan spoke over you.
Can
what
you
did say?
define emergent force that gravity
Yes, I
creates
just did.
and then cite that for us, please?
Yes. Absolutely. Gravity is an emergent force, as in it is a consequence of something else.
Wait.
No,
It
cite
is an emergent force or it creates one? Because now you're flipping your words. You just said it creates a force. Now you're saying it is the force.
Yes. When we say gravity is a force, that's a colloquial thing, all right? There is a force created by what we call gravity, we call that the force of gravity.
Who
Okay,
you? We
Gravity-
call
So
that.
the gravity
Some-
creates the force of gravity? That's what you just said. Are you serious?
No, I said that That
Do you know what you're
curvature of
saying right
space
now, Craig?
is what creates
Oh yeah, can you demonstrate that?
this has been demonstrated many times.
You
What do you
seem
want
to
me
be
to demonstrate?
stuttering, Craig. Does gravity
Space-time.
Sorry?
create the force of gravity? Because that's what you just said. Or
No,
is
no.
it the emergent
Okay,
force
maybe
that you are
not
about to cite for
there,
us?
but
Which one is it?
what I'm saying is that there is a force that is measurable. Okay, we call that the force of gravity. All right, but gravity is what is creating the force. It's
Force
said it
of
again.
gravity.
Force
So you said it again.
You said it again.
again. I'm trying
What's
to
this measurement
force itself.
take, please? You said
Gravity.
Indeed. The non-force force that creates a force that's an emergent force that you can think of as a force, but creates downward vector at 9.8 meters per second.
But don't they go back
Never
and
gets
listen
old.
to themselves?
Very painful. You can hear it. That's cognitive pain that you're hearing there. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics. Looking at you, Discord. Got any science?
Nobody in his field
Yeah.
uses the scientific method.
We can predict the sun is going to rise tomorrow morning.
That's nice. I'm not asking for the observably obvious, though.
In that case, the answer is no.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
I don't see it right now.
It's over there.
Yeah, I can't be sure. It's so grayed up.
Oh, let me
It's
assure you.
so cloudy. I don't know where it is.
Oh, that reminds me. So later on, we're going to be pre-recording a presentation with Brian's Logic. So for that reason, the chances are the after show will be cut pretty short, so we can go straight into that recording. Anyway, one of the things that I want to get away or out of the way now with Arwin is an objection that you might raise during Brian's presentation. And I'm not saying that it's not a reasonable presentation objection, but I want to discuss it now before we get into the presentation so that you can hold on to it knowing that we know that you want to object to it. So in terms of when Brian's going to describe, I'm just going to fill you in and then you can say it now, Arwin. Just hear me out. So in terms of Brian's discussion, it's going to be about the entropic effects of the sun. Now, I know that you would argue and have argued that, well, while we see this light in the sky, when everything gets bright and there's lots of entropic effects occurring, do we know that that specific point in the sky that gets bright is the cause of that? Because it could be that that's a byproduct of the daylight that arrives. So from that perspective, I just wanted to inject that here rather than in Brian's presentation. Even, I mean, obviously, if it comes after the presentation, then fine. I just don't want you interjecting in the presentation going, how do you know that the sun itself, that particular point that you call the sun, that you look at, that manifests in X, Y, and Z ways, is actually the thing that's generating this entropy? So,
All right.
there you go.
Well, it's a matter of semantics, though. If you're just saying, look, the sunlight or daylight, but sunlight is fine, is creating the entropy here on Earth, then I will not disagree with you at all. But if you're going to attribute it specifically to that specific phenomenon, celestial phenomenon, I will definitely feel the objection burning. So that's pretty much it.
And that's why I'm raising it here.
Well, it's fine. Anyone can object about whatever they feel, but I'm just pointing at the sun as the cause of something, and what the sun is, I don't make any claims about.
Okay. Seems a little difficult, though, if you're going to have a claim about what it does when you don't know what it is.
Perfect.
Kind of like
That's
with
where I've got
gravity.
my line lined up, Arwin. So if you can think of when, I don't know, I haven't heard the presentation yet, but when he's talking about the sun, the effects that occur when it's around, if you like.
Yeah, well, basically, my whole point is my whole point of the presentation is, if that sun is not there, would we have the world we have? Basically.
Well, you could reverse the setup of that question very easily and say, if the daylight is not hitting us, will we see the sun disk?
Exactly. So, in other words, if
What
there
about the
wasn't the
moon?
daylight occurrence, would we see the manifestation of the sun? In other words, it's kind of flipping it on its head and saying, well, while we have these entropic increases and we see things brighten up, could it also be that we also, as a result of those things, which we're not explaining and we haven't got a causal explanation for, we also see the manifestation of the sun? In other words, what we see is a byproduct of that.
Exactly.
Not the other way around necessarily. We don't know because we don't know what the sun is.
Yeah, I understand where Arwen's point is the sun could be a product of the daylight as opposed to the daylight being a product of the sun. And that's fine, I understand that, and that's a totally valid argument. But I have to work off of what is the general consensus, that the sun is a thing and it causes certain things to happen. That's the
You have to work off that consensus?
Well, all I can say to you is watch the presentation, because well, what other points? Well, I put it this way: you're welcome to go against the presentation. That's totally fine. But what other point do I have to focus on, if not the sun? Because if it's not the sun that's the cause of these things, then I don't have any point of focus.
Well, yes, you do. Of course you do. You have the daylight. You have the interaction, the empirical.
What's the cause of daylight?
Yeah. Well, what's the cause of the relative density directions, you know? We don't know.
Exactly, we don't know. That's what I'm saying. So, in spite of the fact that Brian probably has got it presented in those terms, in line with consensus view of the effect being the sun's effect rather than the daylight being a manifestation of the sun, and the effects being exactly the same that are being described, I'm saying, can we take that as read from this point? That's why I brought it up, because I don't want this particular discussion, which we're having now, and I do want when we're asking about distance to the sun, perfectly relevant, excellent content, etc., etc. But I don't want it when Brian's making his presentation and for every second sentence to go, well, no, because contextually that's changed because I don't know if the sun's a manifestation of the daylight rather than the daylight being a manifestation of the sun. I don't want that to be a continual objection, Arwin. That's why I'm detailing it here.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. Good that you brought it up, because if you hadn't, I probably would do that.
Yeah, well, that's it. I know you well.
Sure, I'll
Exactly. I don't want you.
Exactly.
I don't want twitchy mics because of this throughout the presentation. And you're the only one that I thought about it, because Brian's given us enough heads up to know that he's doing this for me to think, okay, well, what might be things that slow the presentation down, stop the consistency? Well, that might be one of them, and not because it's an unreasonable objection, and Brian's already said that now, but only because we've had sort of a 10-minute discussion, whereas you can easily pepper out an hour-long presentation into an hour and a half, 2 hours, just because we've got that little mic twitch from you, because like you say, it would be burning a hole in your soul if it wasn't mentioned at some stage.
All right, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll hold my tongue, and I'm curious as to what you're going to present. So.
Well, look, all I say to you is you might have there might be several objections in there, or people, like I'll be stopping within sections for people to ask questions, and they can ask whatever they like. But it's just like the question I asked you, Aaron: what causes the daylight? You had to ask me another question when I asked you that, simply because you don't know. So if I'm going to explain this to the general public, I have to use the sun as a point of focus. I have to. That's the only way to explain it. I mean, if you're trying to ask, what other way am I going to explain it? The same way as if I asked you to explain what causes the daylight, where do you put? What's your point of focus? Where do you start?
I completely agree, Brian. And within the framework of your presentation, without even hearing it, I can understand the justification for the way you've done it. Because if you start to make it more vague, because you're trying to illustrate that we really don't know what is causing the effects that are being detailed that happen when the sun is around, that little sentence that I've just given doesn't need to be the disclaimer. You just need the sun and then your explanation. The sun does X, and here is how it's being detailed on their side. Not the manifestation of heat changes in our daylight time zones when we have blue clouds. Right, it just doesn't. It's not necessary. We don't know what the sun is.
Yeah. To do it any other way would just be making it so complicated for the average person who might listen to it or watch it. It would be just very, very like, well, we're already gone with this, So that's all. I understand Darwin's. I understand Darwin's or anyone else's grimace with it. Yeah, I don't know what the sun is, so I can't actually prove that it's the sun that's causing it. It's just that when the sun is doing certain things happen. It's a correlation, basically.
Right.
It's a
And
light in the
from a
sky that
communication
governs the day.
standpoint, it's just easier to say the sun and then move on, rather than qualifying it every single time in the discussion. And I'm sure that you wouldn't have rewritten it on the fly if it was an objection that came from Arwin during the presentation. And you get twitchy if it's being fobbed off because you want to get through the presentation, but Arwin wants the point to be made clear, like it is now. It's 10 minutes of this now discussing this particular aspect of what we don't know about the sun, because it's a good preface to your presentation, because it's about exactly that.
Yeah, well, I'm stating that the sun is the cause or the starting point for a whole lot of things to take place, and without that, as far as we know, without that, these things wouldn't happen. So I'm only working within what I know. So if someone can show something different to me, I can be totally proven to be incorrect, and I'm fine with that.
Sure, and I'm sure we'll get plenty of opinions in that regard once your presentation's through.
It's pretty obvious. It's a light in the sky that governs the day, just like the moon is a light in the sky that governs the night. I still don't know what it is, what it's made out of.
I was just going to say that. That only tells us what we're looking at. We don't know what it is. We know it's a light, but we don't know
just the
what it is.
causes.
Just
The causes of having a sun.
Indeed. We'll come back to this in a second. I just want to shout out Multi Tom Tom. So, shout out to Multi Tom Tom. I almost read out your comment earlier because you said we don't live on a model, and I wholeheartedly agree. But the conversation was in full flow, Multi Tom Tom. But good to see you. He says Good Friday. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. It is. It's Good Friday today. I normally don't like mentioning the day, but this is a specific occasion today. Good Friday. Might as well give that a drop in.
Best day for the souls of
I
men.
disagree.
It is Good Friday. There's no disagree.
Most
Well, on
important
the old
day in
calendar,
history.
it's next month.
Oh, you literally were being serious.
Yes, indeed.
They're not get
On the
Good Friday.
Christian Orthodox calendar, it's on the 2nd of next month.
I thought they got it from. Correct me if I'm wrong. They get it from the stars anyway. Like it's variable in terms of where it'll fall.
Yes, they count the moon. Yeah, it's moon cycles again.
Is it lunar? Okay, that's what I thought it was. It's certainly not
That's
based
correct.
on any Gregorian calendar where Easter will fall.
No, they celebrate the different times than us. Sometimes it's just weeks, but this year is a month apart.
What a weird world we live in terms of our calendar and the times.
All arbitrarily, anyway.
I just think it'd be nice to be in a simpler time that isn't even documented, where the observably bloody obvious, which is the moon, forms a type of calendar in and of itself. It's running through these cycles and they're consistent. Well, you can tell whereabouts you are in time by that very useful light in the sky. But yet we've got a calendar that puts it askew. It's weird. It's just weird. Especially when people get paid on.
If you want.
Say again, Adam.
It's so Easter does move. So it's the first full moon after the vernal equinox determines the date. So that's why you can have such a big shift after it, because if you've just missed the full moon at the vernal equinox, you've got to wait, and that's why Easter will be late. But we've got a really early Easter this year because it's full moon straight after.
Take note of Adam's phraseology. So when you've missed the full moon, so let's just break that down a little bit. So what Adam's saying is, when your calendar day sits in a position that the moon has already passed by in terms of its phase position, that's what he means by missed. Well, the date structure that's giving you this missed it by is an arbitrary structure, whereas the moon and its patterns are set in stone, metaphorically speaking.
And if you think of it now, as I described it, I describe it in a Gregorian way. and you have it moves within the Gregorian calendar. But if you think of it from an astrological calendar, it never moves because it doesn't have to fit in with the Gregorian 365. It is that day every single time. It's always the full moon. That's how. It's a very different way of thinking it, because your moon and your sun are your arms of your clock, as opposed to them being crowbarred into a separate clock.
Like a lot of corporate pay structures, where people puzzle over why they get, sometimes they'll get 2 paychecks in one calendar month. It's like, well, they're still spaced out the same apart, right? Well, it's because they're working on a lunar calendar for your pay. Now, I don't know why. They say that millionaires look at the, the astronomy, that's right, and the billionaires look at astrology. In other words, the people that are figuring out the logic of the stars are the people that are running the world, as opposed to the people that are listening to the nonsense that astrophysicists come up with when they look at stars and give them names. Because that's the cycles that the world runs on. They are the natural cycles. So when they don't fit in, that's a bit like saying, well, we see too far. No, we don't see too far. We're just looking at something very far in the distance and can see it. That's not too far. But when you've got a heliocentric structure around you that says, well, there should be Earth curve in the way. Should there be? No, there shouldn't be. But when you assume there should be, then there's something that shouldn't be there. It's a mirage. No, you're just seeing something. Doesn't matter how far it is. But when you have a framework around you, a paradigm, if you will, you start phraseologies like, well, the moon is too late in the month. Or, I think it's a blue moon, is 2 full moons in a calendar month. Absolutely meaningless. Because the structure that's being placed around it is an arbitrary structure we've created. Dates and numbers. And it doesn't even work. You know, that's why we have leap years. You know, it's a nonsense, because the moon is tracking its own path and giving you a specific cycle that doesn't change. But yet we're not running off it. The normies aren't anyway. That's for damn sure. Anyway, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
But they modeled out the cooled down molten iron core of the moon.
Molten iron core of the moon? You talking about the story of Thea?
Well, that's what it's supposed to originally have been, but they did model it out. So we got this cross schematics of the Earth's sphere, the molten iron core and all that. Well, they did the same thing now and analyzed what the moon is like.
The moon's never
How
had
they
a molten iron
arrived
core.
to this information, however, is another matter.
Well, the moon's never had a molten iron core in their story. So in their story, the moon was gravitational accretion formation from the debris of Thea smashing into Earth at a glancing blow, depositing its molten iron core in Earth to give you an extra large molten iron core, so that their timeline makes sense in terms of why we have a molten iron core based on the elapsed time. It should have cooled down. Hence, you have this insertion of an extra large molten iron core because of a collision and the debris forming the moon. But that would leave the moon formation never giving it a molten iron core in the first instance. I don't believe. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it didn't. It just cooled down really
I don't know.
quickly.
Maybe it's not molten iron, but it's definitely is suggested to have some, I don't know, cooling down of originally molten stuff. I don't know. I saw the schematic once of the moon core. Maybe I'll just Google it right now.
They've also claimed that the thing's hollow and that they've thrown things at it and it rang. So, you know, you can't believe a word they say. And there's been people out there on the flat earth side that have taken that as evidence. And it's like, ugh, that's why we end up on a very dodgy road, because you can cherry pick your evidence from a complete liar. It's like, if that's not your evidence in its entirety. So in other words, if you're trying to prove something by citation, did you want me to present something, Adam?
I'm presenting something.
Oh, is it you, Arwin? Sorry.
Right. So yeah, this is what happened when I Googled moon core. So there's definitely stuff going on there.
Oh God, definitely then. Well, if the cartoon says so.
Mantle, partial melt, fluid outer core, solid inner core, and they even got the distances.
Wow.
P waves and S waves are amazing.
Man, they
I
are.
don't think I ever used that.
My point is that if this is a baseless assertion, if this is your claim based purely on this as a citation, it's the same as saying, well, the moon's hollow because NASA say it rings. They threw stuff at it out in space in a second law of thermodynamics violation and it rang. It's like, well, if you're taking that particular piece of evidence on its face value, then you're taking their baseless assertion on face value, no different to this on face value. It's like, where's the actual evidence beyond these cartoons and baseless assertions?
Ooh, well, the evidence is that apparently the moon's core once had its own magnetic field.
That's just the story. That's not the evidence. That's
Yes?
the story. That's just the story, Arwin.
Well, why
Hang on.
would they say it if they didn't know it?
Hold on, let's shout out Silent Zero. Aztec calendar is more precise than the modern calendar. I don't disbelieve it, Silent Zero. Thank you for the super chat.
I was going to say, why don't they add evolution in with the Theia story and say that life came from another planet, and that would be even better. Just making shit up, just throw that in there too.
Well, like the black Spider-Man suit.
Right. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you can get down with that, right?
Venom. Yeah, why not? Aliens and shit.
Why, yeah, we're all aliens now. We come from outer space.
No.
They knew that
Second law of
anyway.
thermodynamics violation.
Wow, look at this title here. Ben Weiss, a professor of planetary sciences in MIT, Department of Earth. Atmospheric and planetary sciences. Oh, God, planetary.
Where else would you have a department except on Earth?
Just
Yeah,
a
that's,
great-
well, that's the whole built
So when you go to another planet, you pull out a badge and it's got a round Earth on it. You say,
If they
"Yeah,
go
I'm
to the moon and
Department of
then
Earth,
live
please.
there, then
Just
they're
the
moon.
facts, man."
Chocolate, you come in. Where are you from? Can't you see the badge? I'm from the Department of Earth.
Department of Earth, just the facts.
Right. And if you're stationed at the moon, then you're a lunar scientist. Anyway,
Okay.
so that's my proof of the molten iron core. There's a lot of news stories about the core of the moon.
Ballers love you, Aaron.
Well, you know the new King Kong and Godzilla movie talks about Hollow Earth.
Yeah,
So
and
it can't be molten iron if it's in the
That's
movie.
correct.
Come on now, guys.
that's right. It does hint at Hollow Earth in the new Godzilla movie. That's right.
Well, if you look at what's that movie, Pacific Rim, that's where the monsters are coming from, underneath inside the Earth.
Yeah, the regular Kong.
I remember.
Kong with Samuel L. Jackson.
Well, they're coming
Well,
from
Look
Yeah,
at that Planet Earthling is saying, that's real stuff you're laughing at, Arwin.
The Pacific Rim actually was another dimension. Come on, man, you got to get it right. That's that multi-dimension, multi-universe thing. So that's the Pacific Rim.
All right. Well, that's wonderful. We can
Oh,
dissect this nonsense a little bit more in the very abbreviated after show that we're going to have. So with that, I'll say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, or joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching in the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!